Before we start today's episode, I have some exciting news. From April 7th to 11th, 2025, I will be hosting a free online virtual summit called No More Heroes. This is a gathering of men's work leaders from across North America, and we're going to be diving into myth, initiation, fatherhood, archetype, and the masculine psyche as a whole. Furthermore, we'll be looking at where we are in terms of men's work today and where we ought to be going to bring forward a brighter world. If this is interesting to you, good news. It's free and open to everybody. You can find a link to reserve your seat in the description below. Now on to the show. The Smiling Human podcast is made possible by listeners like you. If you would like to experience more of these shows into the future, then please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/thesmilinghuman. Hello, and welcome to The Smiling Human, where collectively we evolve through inquiry. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Smiling Human podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Justin Dale. Justin Dale is a business consultant that helps men's transformational coaches build thriving online businesses. He has a BFA in New Media from the University of Lethbridge and was a web designer at Playboy, as well as managed to sell $6 million worth of medical masks during the pandemic as an e-commerce entrepreneur. His work exists at the intersection of internet marketing and men's personal development coaching, and his purpose and passion is helping men's transformational coaches make an extra $5,000 a month through elevating their online presence with the Tribe Builder method. Now, Justin is a friend of mine, a new friend, and this conversation is perhaps more personal than some of the other episodes we've had so far as we explore his journey coming into men's work and supporting men's transformational coaches, as well as how that intersects with my own area of expertise. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Fantastic, Justin. Well, I'm really glad to have you here on the Smiling Human podcast. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Og. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So I'll ask you the question I ask each guest at the head of the show. What's the last thing that made you smile?
Probably seeing you and another person get into a very serious debate in the comment section of a post that I just posted on Facebook, sharing that I was going to be on this podcast, which I'm excited about. And yeah, and then that was funny because that doesn't happen every day. But yeah, that was the last thing that made me smile. Smiling is good.
Smiling is good. Yeah, I like to tell my friends it's a really good thing that I don't have Twitter or X because of my desire to engage in topics is so strong, and sometimes I forget that social media is not really the place to do that. So I appreciate your tolerance and grace around my
I went through that. I went through that process back in 2016, 2017 at the height of conflict, I guess, political, social media, all that stuff. And then I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to stay quiet about everything and focus on things where we don't necessarily have big kind of, what's that word for, like, when the earth, there's that like split in the, like big fault lines.
Yeah.
And just
totally fair.
Yeah. But a good debate is a beautiful thing as well. So
Agreed.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things, for better or for worse. So the audience would have got just a short intro to you at the beginning of the show, but I would love for you to lay out for us how it is you transitioned from the work you were doing previously now into focusing primarily on serving men who are serving others.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. And I think it's the culmination of my entire 43 years of life experience, going back all the way to my childhood and my parents and their relationship and the culture of Canada that I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and the role of masculinity in that, and painful experiences in my process of finding joy and happiness and emotional healthiness. And I've always been interested in creativity and art, and my stepfather was an influence on that. Although all my mom and my dad, I grew up in kind of a environment where creativity was encouraged, and then that led me to studying multimedia production in college, and I started out doing digital art, like video art. One professor described it as, and then that eventually I got more serious about turning those skills because I was learning like the Adobe Creative Suite, Photoshop, and video production and web design. I got more serious about taking all those skills and finding my way into a career because I was working as a line cook. But before that, as a teenager, my early 20s, and I was really unhappy doing that. And then I got into kind of like working in that field as a web designer, graphic designer, onward and upward, eventually kind of like a digital or a marketing of director at an e-commerce company. And along the way, trying to find myself as a human being and trying to be able to connect with girls romantically and form friendships with other men and be respected. And um, I got involved in the coaching world because I went through like a really periods of my life where I was in a lot of pain, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. Even what I would say, these are the words I use. I even went through like a Kundalini rising experience, which was excruciatingly painful for like 2 years, and just a lot of loneliness, and really always believed in this idea that we can create our life, we can create who we are, we can grow and heal and become stronger and return to our true nature, our true self. And I think that growing up, I just went through things that affected my self-esteem, where it made me feel bad about myself, as well as I got a lot of weird ideas about masculinity. I was exposed to feminism, and I'm not saying feminism is bad, but I was exposed to a lot of ideas at a very early age that told me like men are kind of inherently there's flawed, and you need to tone down those sides of you, maybe that where you want to, I don't even know what words to use, like express your strength, and be wild. And trying to connect with girls was really a real challenge for me because of my low self-esteem and my shyness. And so that was a real process where I I decided I really need to take action with that, and really change some things with that. And then that led to learning about masculine and feminine energy, and what women really want in a man, what they really feel attracted to. And then as well as just feeling like who I really am. Like I like sports, I like to compete. I play soccer Tuesday nights, and I get really competitive, even though it's like a beer league. And I love it. And I like stuff that people would traditionally say is masculine. I'm just drawn to that stuff. That's because that's just the way God made me. And so it's been a process of rediscovering and kind of coming back to my true self, and shedding layers of people. My experience has told me that I'm less than I really am, and that there's something wrong with me for being masculine. And so and then I mentioned my professional career that led into helping people with marketing, and I really focused on the coaching space because I love it. It's really fun for me. And then realizing that my clients that I help with marketing, what they also need in addition to the marketing tactics and strategies is they need to elevate their own self relationship. And so that kind of brings me to where I am now, and I feel so alive and fulfilled and challenged. And um yeah, and here I am speaking in public and meeting amazing people like you, so it's really exciting.
Brilliant, brother. Thank you. I'm drawn to focus on two pieces of what you brought forward. On the one hand, there's the notions of perhaps the distortions around masculinity that characterized the early aspects of your development, maybe even into later adolescence. And I know too, in having spoken to you in other conversations, we've had a few, is that you had worked for Playboy before, and that was mentioned in the bio, and you also had been in some sense working with or for a pickup artist. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious about the intersections there, because that's on the one hand, and I'll come back to that and offer you a pretty clear question for that. On the second point, when I listen to your story, and what I find so relatable about it is that there's this sort of two-track progression that's taking place. On the one hand, your skills are developing, your natural proclivity for creativity and pursuing what is authentic to you is growing on the one side. And then there's this sort of snaking river of who am I? What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a man in relationship? And and eventually where you've come to is there's actually this merger now where this authentic masculinity that you've cultivated in yourself, and having moved through the shadow pieces, which is what I want to talk to, you're now able in a position to apply your own unique magic and skills to be able to serve others to do something similar. So I'm curious if you can speak to the the contrast. This is what I want to know. When you're working for Playboy, that's got a lot of darkness and shadow around it. There's a lot of trafficking around this. We know there's now, we didn't always know this, but we know that there's a very dark aspect to it. The pickup artist community as well hmm, has elements that are rooted in misogyny for sure, and a deep sort of distrust and disrespect for the feminine and for women. And so that transition from now where you see your authentic masculine and this shadow aspect, like how did you move from that point A to point B?
Yeah. And I want to add to that I live in Colombia, where there is just massive sexual tourism, basically, like just prostitution everywhere. I live in a pretty small city, so I know all the other expats, and they're all just completely addicted to prostitutes, and all they want to talk about is girls. And it drives me crazy. And I judge them. And because like they're my age, or roughly. And in some ways it's like, well, gosh, there's so much to it, because my hormones have shifted. And so I don't, like, when I was, like, let's say 16 years old, and a beautiful, physically attractive girl walked by, I had to stare. I could not stare. Like, I would do because I was just, every fiber of my being was wired. And I know maybe not every single man is like that. Some are just more like that than others. I was like full to the max like that. And now it's the cringiest thing ever, and it's pathetic and it's sad. Because I'll be out having dinner with like the guys from my soccer team, and like they're the other expats. We just all know each other. Um, and all they talk about is girls, and it's just like ridiculous. And one of them is in a long-term relationship, and he cheats on her all the time, but always paying. He's not really particularly attractive. He's got a lot of money. He's from Italy, and it's so poor here. So, but and then the other guy, it's like he's incapable of having a girlfriend. It's like it makes me kind of wonder how they got to where they're at. Like, and I could kind of relate to them more earlier, but I always loved the idea of having a girlfriend, even when I basically wasn't really capable of it for whatever reason. I still liked it, but if like um
The
and then
qualities you see in them, is that something that you noticed while working at Playboy with the sort of mentality there being hyper focused on the visual and on the aesthetic. I imagine that a magazine focused on portraying the idealized version of the feminine would be perhaps quite drenched or saturated with that kind of mentality. Is that the lines that you're drawing here?
Yeah. So strangely enough, working at Playboy in that particular office, which was technically we were an agency that Playboy outsourced everything to, because Playboy doesn't do anything in house, or I think they've shifted away. They want to do more stuff in house, but it was actually like half men, half women. Everybody got along well. Um, so I never really got like a sense of like really negative, like um, objectification, exploitation, nothing like that. Surprisingly, even though there were other projects in the same building, like more like hardcore porn and stuff like that, and but it's actually a really nice community of people working there. Even though the owners were like super gangster, like actual criminals, which is weird because they're making so much money, like legally. But I agree. Like, of course, in the big picture, that fits into that this whole dynamic of like kind of seeing women as sex objects, objectifying their bodies, seeing body parts. And I think that a big part of it is that sex sex obsession can become like a coping mechanism for like some people. They might get addicted to cocaine, or other people they might get addicted to jogging, because we're just trying to kind of regulate ourselves to just feel okay. And I think a lot of men's sex becomes like that thing for them. But then it's also how they feel about women, and men are just completely incapable of relating to a woman romantically. They're lost, unfortunately, and like, but women are too. I think it's just the pressure is not really on them, but they probably are completely lacking in communication skills and openness and whatever. But men are in a pretty rough position with that. And so me learning how to be a pickup artist was really an attempt to get like a find a beloved life partner, was really what was behind that. Although I definitely was interested in sexual variety as well. But now, looking in hindsight, that was a long time ago. Now I can say, like, having had those experiences, I'm definitely feel like I'm ready, because I'm still single. Um, but I do feel like I'm much more ready now, having had those experiences, which were really fun and rich and fulfilling. But I also know that I hurt some people, and I picked up some bad narcissistic tendencies when it came to relating. But it was part of my healing journey of finding my self-esteem, finding my ability to act in a way that's attractive, because that was kind of I was told from such an early age, put what women are these incredible, exquisite creatures, put them on a pedestal, be nice to them. They're like, the future is female. As soon as we just let women be dominant, the world's going to be a utopia. And that just made me feel like I'm not worthy. I don't deserve one. If I'm with one, I had no idea that they still really react to us the way that they did like a million years ago, which is they crave our masculine strength. They crave our leadership. They crave to feel safe with us, for us to protect them, provide security for them. If somebody wants to say that's controversial, fine. But as someone who went from being a very shy, very nice, timid person who was considered physically attractive growing up, women like or girls like the way I looked and stuff, but I was not successful, to someone who now, part of the reason why I don't really even really like do much dating or anything is because the challenge, it honestly, like, this might sound arrogant, but it's and I'm in Colombia, so it's different, but it's not a challenge for me. I can get girlfriends and dates, and it doesn't, like, when it's kind of a challenge and you're like, oh, maybe I can meet a girl on Tinder and go out on a date, and maybe she'll like me and I can have sex with her. And then it's like, yes, I did it. I'm the man. But after a while, and as I got older, I think, like, um, women are definitely attracted to, like it gets easier for men as they get older. It's just like, I didn't really get validation from it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. There's three really big pieces here that I think are kind of gems in your story. And the first is the recognition that there was a performative aspect to what you were doing previously, and that's comes through the pickup artist piece. And when I was speaking with Matt Sturm last week, which will probably have already aired at this point, we were talking about the shadow aspects of the magician. And I bring up this particularly because with the No More Hero Summit that's coming up, you're speaking on the Magician Day. So there is sort of an integrated and interwoven piece here, is that one of the shadow aspects, according to Matt, of the magician is the performer. And that there
yes.
is necessarily this way of going, okay, how can I portray, or what can I portray in order to get what I want? And this dark piece ties into the other dark piece where you mentioned about your very genuine recognition of having harmed other people going through this pickup artist piece. And that to me speaks to the misuse of logos being the word, the power of the word. You know, even in some cultures, it is understood that the gift of the word was given to men, and the gift of the generative land, be it planting, sowing, harvesting, agriculture, was given to women. And so there's sort of a reciprocal aspect here. And so, okay, I bring this up to say that I'm listening to you, and there's a recognition that your skills were misapplied because there was a lack of connection into your own source. There was almost this externalization. And we see this a lot, especially in the pickup artist community. Not that I've been a part of that community, I've read a book or two, but there is very much this silent shadow of lack. And I don't have this, I'm putting in quotes for all the listeners, this being the objectified aspect, the object of woman. You brought that up as well. And to say that when we depersonalize the feminine, when we strip the consciousness, the life, the uniqueness that is the nuance of each individual person, and start to look only at the material, then we kind of fall into what you were speaking about at the very end of your share, Justin, which is this hunter's aspect. I need to get the thing, right? And don't get me wrong, I like a good dance. I like a good sort of, give and take, cat and mouse. There's a nuance and an art to this seduction on both sides. But when we lose sight of what it is that we're attempting to relate to, that is to say, who we are relating to, then we are deeply ensconced in shadow. We're at this point where we are going to leverage our language, we're going to leverage our actions, our clothes, whatever it is that we can do in order to attempt to fulfill the need of relating that we haven't figured out how to do on our own. I think that's a really powerful piece. And I wonder now for you, given that you have such a naturally competitive drive, how do you balance that for yourself, given that you are working with men? So there's a lot of masculine energy in this aspect. You're already leaning towards the masculine temperament, having this competitive edge. Where do you find yourself, or how do you find yourself able to move from that very polarized yang, or that very competitive edge, into the other aspects, the more generative, the creative, the relational?
Great question. And you're absolutely right. So the mindset that I learned was to treat all women as sort of a singular spirit, and each interaction builds upon the last one. And to, like you were saying, it's a performance, to be strong, to speak loudly, to express strength, and basically to show up as to appear in their life as a raging ball of awesomeness. And now that I'm looking for a relationship, it is so different because I've recently gotten involved with a girl that is objectively one of the hottest girls I've ever been with in my life. And I'm seeing things about her that are disqualifying her as a potential life partner, despite the fact that, like, spectacular. It felt great showing her off to my barber, who's like the only person I would show. I don't like to do that, but he wanted to see it. We've got a special bond. And so now it's like interesting to share a shortcoming of mine and see how they respond to that, or to, yeah, basically the opposite of like always just putting my best foot forward, mirroring them, reading them, sensing what they're going to respond to and giving them that, to really sharing who I really am and testing to see, like, do they appreciate the things about me that I want to be appreciated for? Are they capable of seeing it? Some girls that I've been involved with, they see blue eyes, blonde hair, gringo with money, nothing else matters. Well, I want to be recognized for my creativity, my playfulness, my kindness, my thoughtfulness, my intelligence. Um, and
What
so,
makes you you?
yeah. And so I'm not I'm not worried about losing them, because I kind of want to get to the truth of the matter.
Mm,
Like, maybe
mm,
if they're going to reject me because they found out something about me that they don't like, great. That's
mm.
cool. Well, I say that now, but sometimes
It stings less.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, and
yeah.
I think you're really putting something quite, I want to say funny, not in a sense that it's absurd or ridiculous, but it makes me chuckle because what you're describing here is also very akin to the messaging that you offer forward in your groups and through the media that you put out. What you're speaking to is that when we're looking for an authentic connection, or a real connection, a long-term connection, something based in reality, that our authenticity is actually the most attractive thing to be and also to receive, because that is how we can genuinely, accurately qualify or disqualify anybody for a partnership. And I think it was just the other day, and I might quote this wrong, so correct me if I get this wrong, but you put a post that said authenticity is the message, or authenticity is something like this.
The funnel.
That's what it was. Authenticity is the funnel, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that's bloody brilliant. And it's the same in dating. It's a principle that applies to all aspects, not just for men, but men and women, but particularly we're speaking to men here, is that when you are genuinely and deeply in touch with what is true for you and are skilled enough and capable to articulate that either through speech and action, either one, both is better, that's when we start to attract the things that are in harmony with us, be it a client, business partners, women. And so I wonder if you could speak a bit to that, how that authenticity has worked its way into your dynamic and how you came to weave that into the marketing process.
Okay. So let's say, yeah, I love that bridge into the, because into the business side of things because I've thought about that. So, but I'll start with the kind of dating romance stuff first. Is let's say a girl rejects me. Well, it's not because I'm not good enough. It's not because she's not good enough to see how great I am. It's just there's not that chemistry, there's not that energetic resonance. And sometimes one person picks up on it earlier than the other one. And like sometimes maybe I desire a girl that I can't get because she's already seeing that we don't really resonate, but I'm sort of like still seeking validation or something to try and get that. But I'm shifting more and more away from that. And now it's like when it works, it works. And so I went through that process of being basically not taking any action, incapable of expressing my interest, my desire, to very clumsily attempting to maybe express romantic interest, not successfully, to getting very proficient at it and smooth, just skilled, experienced. And so I've got a pretty big marketing background, and but sales less so. And I'm still a work in progress when it comes to the sales part side of things. And I'm sure I've gotten better and better and better, but I've sometimes sort of likened it to that process of like, hopefully I'll go through a similar process of being like just kind of awkward and not really understanding the nuances and the details or just the state of the frame of mind, the state of being, to just it just gets smooth. It starts to work. And I'm hoping that I'm on a similar process of that with kind of the sales aspect of what I do now, because I am a work in progress. I haven't mastered everything. I would say I'm someone who can definitely help people on the path who are less far along as myself. But for someone who's $1 million a year coach, maybe there's something I could teach them, but I'm probably not their mentor, but that's all good because people that are less like less far along than myself, I can definitely share everything I've learned along the way. And I think it is a similar process of communication, relating to other human beings. And I think that when the quality of our life is largely dictated by that, because um, the most richest experiences in life are not necessarily when you have like a new material object. It's more like when you're with great people in some cool place. And like, let's say maybe somebody invited you to spend the weekend at their cabin with them and their other group of friends. You guys all know each other, and it's just this amazing thing. And I went through times in my life where I felt kind of like outcast and missing out and not knowing how to connect with people and make friends. Although my true nature has always been outgoing, friends, social, to now like being able to connect with people, network, make friends, have my own social movement that I've got my own thing going on, and then I can jump into other people's thing. And actually doing this coaching thing and getting more high profile on social media has been wonderful for that. Like, for example, meeting you is a great example. Like, meeting so many amazing people. I went hiking in Colorado last summer with people I met through the work I'm doing. And yeah, it's I never expected that part. But I think that, like, of course we need to take care of our material needs, right? We need food, shelter, water, and hopefully more than that. Like, we want to have nice things, nice clothes, and nice toys and stuff, but then the real richness of life is in the relationships. And there's such a massive range in people's abilities with that. Like some people are hopeless. Everybody thinks they're an asshole. Nobody wants to be around them. To other people are just have these exquisite people skills, and for them the world is just opens up for them. And so that's what I aspire to, is just to continue cultivating my abilities to connect and um, I'm trying to find the words because I feel like bringing value or something sounds kind of not really what it is, but it's like there's something to be said about, like, there's some people that people want to be around them. They're magnetic, right? And I think we all want to cultivate that. We want to be charismatic. We want people to feel good when they're around us. And so it's just kind of I think it's a lifelong process of just developing that, whatever that is. It's very subtle.
Hmm. Absolutely. It reminds me of a statement that says people won't remember what car you drove, how big your house was, or anything that you might have taught them, but they will remember how you made them feel. I think
Mm,
that that's a really key piece. And so, on that, we'll take a brief break and we'll come back with the second half of the show.
great.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I wanted to take a brief moment to talk about just how you can help this show grow into the future. Did you know that we have an Instagram, a YouTube, and a Patreon? Probably. But if you're listening on YouTube, like many of you are, I would invite you to subscribe, to like this video if you've enjoyed it, and to leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have any questions or maybe guests that you want me to interview. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music or any other podcast platform, then please take this moment to rate the show. All of these actions go a long way to helping the Smiling Human podcast reach more people and grow into the future. Thank you so much. Fantastic. We are now back with the second half of the show, which means we are into the section called the Question of the Week. This is where I invite our guest to bring forward an inquiry, something that's maybe relevant to them, something they think you, the listeners, might benefit from us speaking to, or maybe they want me to offer my insight, whatever that may be, on the topic. So, Justin, what do you have for us this week?
So one of the things that I really enjoy and appreciate about your work is your exploration of the archetypes of men, the hero, the king, the magician, the lover. And we've been discussing my journey of being someone who was kind of incapable of really truly connecting it with a committed, beloved life partner, but was able to have a lot of different romances. And I felt like I was kind of running around on a conquest and being maybe even manipulative or dishonest at times, to where now I feel like I'm really finally on the cusp of moving into a new phase of my life, which will include like a queen or a beloved life partner, a committed relationship with a woman. And I love hearing you talk about the archetypes, and I feel like I'm moving through the expression of these different archetypes in my life, and in particular in terms of my kind of um, romantic life. So I'd love to learn about the archetypes and your philosophy on the subject.
Hmm. Insofar as it relates to your trajectory that we've covered so far.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, we spoke to a few sections of your story, the sort of time with the pickup artists. We spoke to the aspect of coming into the dating struggles and these pieces that are relating around that. And we also spoke to how authenticity plays into strong marketing for any business, but for coaches in particular, because we're working in such a personal realm. And one of the things that I think is worthy of noting is that the dark aspects of the pickup artist realm, and I think this also applies to marketing and businesses, but we'll talk to that in a second, the shadow aspects of the pickup artist are the shadow magician and the shadow lover. That is to say, there's an obsessive aspect towards the feminine. It's a possessive aspect, right? Almost the addicted lover, in the words of Moore and Gillette. And the manipulative aspect that we spoke to about leveraging or performing, applying our language in a way that allows us to get the object of desire, in quotes here for listeners. And so the reason that that comes up, I mean, there's lots of reasons. There are as many reasons as there are people, but very commonly is that there's a lack of integration of that feminine principle, that relating function internally. So when we're looking at this process, be it in trying to find a partner or trying to bring our business into the world, we are effectively attempting to relate with something other than. And the mechanisms by which we relate, we might say, are intrinsically erotic. And that might sound strange to people because they're going to go, wait a minute, I thought we were talking about marketing. Why are we talking about eroticism now? But eroticism roots down into eros, and the nature of eros is relating. It's not necessarily sexual, but it is in the relationship. So when we are moving and living through the world and our relating function is shaped by disingenuous, manipulative, and unintegrated aspects of our sense of self or sense of world, all of that ripples out, and we necessarily deprive our relationships, the conversations with women, our marketing material, our business of the very vitalizing aspect of authentic relating. I think that that's an interesting aspect. And you mentioned hero. So if I can add one more piece here, is, we talked about the idea of conquest or the objectification, getting the quote thing, right? And what's so funny about this is that the hero is, in some sense, very much characterized in modern culture as going to attain the gold, right? It's going to get the dragon's gold. And if we are only going to allow ourselves a very shallow interpretation of the hero's journey, we might actually think that that's literal physical wealth in this sort of commodified culture, but it absolutely bloody isn't. And it's not even the damsel quote or the woman or the status, but the gold itself, at least from the depth psychology and the alchemical point of view, is the richness of the human soul. And so long as we're operating inside the distortion that the gold we seek is outside of ourselves, that's when we perpetuate the kind of behaviors and patterns that are only going to be detrimental to our relationships, our capacity to form them, and our ability to attract the kind of clientele and wealth that we desire inside of our business. So those would be some of the pieces I would weave.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's so multidimensional because as soon as you mentioned like the dark magician, I was like, "Ooh, that's so true." Like really playing with perception and um, lies by omission and sort of dazzling, like attempting to put a spell really with charisma or whatever to dazzle them, and with the idea of, because I feel like the hero, I felt like I was being the hero quite a bit with those experiences of trying to be with and succeeding with a lot of different girls, and but at the same time it was my own personal inner alchemical process of healing, rediscovering my self-worth, my self-esteem. And so it's such a mix because there's the addicted lover, that compulsive sexuality, the lying, the really hurting badly, breaking hearts. But at the same time, and maybe I could have done a little bit more gracefully and ethically, not not like I was so terrible, but at the same time, this is all very much a healing journey of someone with good intentions for the world, who's always cared about other people, trying to transform myself to back get to kind of my divine birthright of knowing that I'm worthy, that I'm wanted, that I'm attractive, that
Hmm.
a good
There's
sex
nothing
life is,
missing.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And so it's really so multi-dimensional and all these things.
Hmm. I might add something about the distinction between the hero and the king when we're looking at how we move through the world. This is something I've been putting a lot of focus on, just given the fact that I've been crafting in person workshops for men to do this exact transition. When you were speaking about being the hero and sort of having that conquest ac- aspect, there's something really like needing to be pointed to here, which is to say that the hero doesn't have any domain other than his own body, right? The hero is its own individuated element. And that's an important thing to remember. It's like, yes, all the archetypes are individuated in their own sense, they're individual in that sense. But the hero's journey is the journey of individuation. And so it moves through as the main character and as the main point of focus. This is where we get the ideas of, oh, how much money am I making? How many clients am I attracting? How do people think about my marketing? How many girls can I get? It's all about I, me. But
Mm-hmm.
when we start to shift that, the shift is in recognizing that our heroic commitment in the highest aspect, because you brought in the divine, is to first order principles, something like this. We need to be aligned with divine truth in order to be able to mature properly, the way of nature, we might say. And the distinction there is that we're committed to this as a hero, but when we are stepping into kingship, we are looking at a domain that includes the well being of other people. It's not just first order principles. We're not just saying truth, valor, justice, beauty, etc. We are looking at, okay, those, and I now have to, by choice and by given right, be aware of the ways that my actions impact those under my care or within my domain. And you cannot be a king and a pickup artist at the same time, because you are serving two different gods when you do this. I was speaking to Soma Miller, and his episode came out already. Actually, it's out as of our recording date today. And I said to him that recently I had encountered a new conception of the king archetype. That instead of it being a set of behaviors, much like the other ones are typically understood, or a set of motivations, it is actually an ordering function inside the psyche. So the king archetype is our ability to accurately order the things that are valuable in our lives. This includes our rights and our responsibilities. And then we have the energy of the warrior for the action, the deep commitment of the lover that is in relationship to these things, the magician with the skills to be able to interact with all of the different elements that are required in order for us to fulfill those aims. But the capacity to aim itself in the light of all of these different multifaceted aims, that's the king. The hero has one. I need to slay the dragon. The king says, I have many under my stewardship. So there
Mm-hmm.
is more than just I to consider. I think that's an
Mm-hmm.
important piece to add.
Wow, and that just made me think of, I have worked with people who they're very successful in business outside of coaching, and then they want to get into coaching, and it's all about them. They'll start showing up a little bit on social media saying, hey everybody, I'm a coach, I'm so good at life, now I'm going to show other people how to be this good at life. But it's all about them. And there's this kind of philosophy. I think maybe an author named Dan Miller came up with this originally, which is be be Obi-Wan, don't be, or be Yoda, don't be Luke Skywalker. Be the guy, don't be the hero. When as the coach, you're not the hero. Let the client be the hero. Or it's like when we're creating content as coaches with the intention of attracting clients, as well as just like living our purpose, because we attract paying clients through our social media, but we're also having a effect on the world, the larger world, through our social media. And I think that's a good way of thinking about it. um, it's like, make content for them. Don't make it just for yourself about like how amazing you are. Like, people don't really like that, unless maybe it's a very physically attractive person
Mm-hmm.
and people just want to look at them. But
Mm-hmm.
we can feel that when it's all about them. So I think that being the king in terms of how we're showing up in social media, which is really in our online community, sort of caring about everybody else, is kind of a steward of the community rather than it's just me, is
Mm-hmm.
such a critical shift. And some people, they haven't quite understood that yet,
Mm-hmm.
because they're doing it for egotistical reasons. They
Mm-hmm.
like the idea of being a coach because it's kind of high status, it's kind of sexy.
Yeah.
And maybe on some level they do have really good intentions, they just haven't really tapped into it yet, the
Mm-hmm.
real why. But often it's sort of, I've seen it, like it's sort of self-aggrandizement.
Mm-hmm. Well, and on the other side too, there's also those who are readily abandoning their authenticity to produce content that pleases. And I think that that's
Yeah,
the flip side, right? So on one hand, it's
right.
like, oh, look at my persona, look at my self-crafted image, and I'm going to put this forward. In some sense, we all have to do that. Like, we choose a profile picture. Some of us get photographers. We have copywriters, right? There is a craft to it. But one of the razor's edges that I have found in my own business building, and this has come through conversations with you as well, it's been expounded on, is that there is a very delicate balance in business and in life between offering that which is beautiful and enjoyable to a large group of people without compromising your authenticity.
Hmm.
And some
Totally.
people, they rail against this, and it's an interesting conversation to have with people. And I've been the people railing against it in the past, which is to say, why should I change how I'm speaking or how I dress or what I say in order to be more palatable to other people? You go, well, okay, you don't have to, but if your palatability is what you're relying on in order to attract a mate or to find success in business, then take it into consideration. Find a way to balance what feels true for you with what is comprehensible and attractive and meaningful and beautiful to other people. That's a delicate, delicate balance.
Yeah, it is. And I've I've got some perspective on that, because most of my coaching business is based on Facebook, but I'm also active on Instagram. And on Facebook, I've got maybe 4,000 friends, a little bit less probably, and probably 3,000, 3,500 of them are working in the personal development space in some capacity, potential perfect fit clients. On Instagram, I've got like 800 followers, and they're mostly people that I've just met traveling. Probably half of them don't even speak English. Like it's a big Spanish speaking, because I kind of like, I speak intermediate level Spanish, and
Claro que sí, está bien.
sí, claro, and so I'll post something on Facebook, and it'll get good engagement, and not gonna lie, it feels good. It feels good when I'm like, I guess that was a banger, like if it gets lots of engagement. And then I'll post the same thing, like modified a little bit to Instagram. So there could be potentially something changes in the um, what's the medium or whatever, but it's the essence of it. And then it's like it's a dud on Instagram because it's a completely different audience. And I'm working on it's an ongoing evolution, right? I want to connect with people in the personal development space, the coaching space, the men's work space a lot more in Instagram, but I haven't gotten there yet. And so when I do put something on Instagram and it's crickets that was a hit over on Facebook, then it's like I have a moment where I go, well, I know it's not a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Just based purely on the audience perception, because I know that that other audience did like it. So then it's like it's about staying true to my vision, but what I want to the idea is I want to share social media is about being social.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'd be kind of weird to be posting things that I don't even know if this is possible, but posting things that nobody likes but you like it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think it is it's like, sometimes you have a conversation with somebody and they just talk and maybe they're actually saying interesting things, but it's not an enjoyable experience because they're not listening. I think it's like that with social media. Like you have to like the stuff you're sharing, but you're sharing it for the other people. So it's like you're saying, it's that balance. And then, but then ultimately you have, if you like it, that's what's important, and trusting that if you like something, then there are other people out there that will like it as well. And sometimes it's just a matter of finding the way to connect with those people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And using slowly the feedback that we get when we find the people who resonate with our authentic message as the metric by which we measure other feedback when it comes to our content creation. So what I mean by that is, you mentioned at the head of the show that I got into a short debate with someone on your Facebook post. They were offering a critical perspective on some of my branding.
Mm-hmm.
And they first, it was an inquiry. I love an inquiry. We have a
Mm-hmm.
section called the question of the week. You can ask any question. And then there was a disagreement, and I had no worries. Okay, let's get into dialogue about this. As I continued to discourse, regardless of the level of understanding that was taking place, what was passing through my mind is that this person is not an ideal client. It was a woman. I'm not marketing to women.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I need to ignore that, because there are sisters and aunts and mothers who will turn their male family members towards my work. I understand that. But by the same token, I do have to measure the weight of that kind of feedback against that customer avatar, or against the
Mm-hmm.
kind of individual that I want to be or I'm trying to attract. I said
Mm-hmm.
this to a friend the other day. What I said to him was, and it's not my own words, but it's something I've been practicing. I will not take advice from anyone with whom I would not trade places.
Wow.
And this
Yeah.
is a really key point, particularly on a thing. So, look, if you're a mechanic and you're telling me how to fix my car,
Sure.
great. I'm all
Yeah.
ears, right? But if you're
Mm-hmm.
someone who has struggled socially for decades, who doesn't have a lot of friends, who is admittedly uncomfortable and ill equipped to deal with different types of social situations, and you come to me and you make a critical comment on how I converse or relate, okay, I hear you, but you're not demonstrating to me the lived experience that would say to me that you know what the heck you're talking about. And
Yeah.
therefore, you've disqualified yourself. And I think that that's something, as business owners, as coaches, as men in the dating world, we need to remember, right? If your buddy's going to give you dating advice, is he in a long-term partnership? Is he, noble, loyal, honest, trustworthy? Do you look at him and say, yeah, you know what? I look up to him. I really admire the kind of man he is. And he's telling me that maybe this is something I should cultivate. Great, let's move in that direction. If he's, unemployed, serial cheater, only on the dating apps, can't really keep a relationship down, and he's trying to tell you how to speak to a woman, probably wouldn't consider that based on your goals. You know what I mean? So I think that
Yeah.
that's a metric we need to keep in mind.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm having a flashback to a very specific moment back in 2017 when I had just done a weekend private boot camp with my pickup artist mentor, who, in hindsight, I'm now absolutely certain has narcissistic personality disorder. But not hating, on him or anything. But he told me, you don't, just because someone's talking to you doesn't mean you have to listen. And I'm back in the office where I worked. I worked at a small e-commerce company, and this there was three sales guys, and I remember this moment where this guy was just talking and talking to me. I have no idea what he was saying, but I just felt like, yeah, I don't have to stand here and just listen. And I stopped listening. I forget the exact details if I walked away, and that was very, very empowering.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and then another thing is that being polarizing, attracting haters, that hasn't really been a part of my experience that much. However, as my profile has grown, because I have a Facebook group that's growing, it's now up to 800 people about, and I do get comments or reactions to some things I post that are like, how would I even describe it? They're antagonistic towards me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's got this underlying presupposition that I'm an authority.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm
Yep.
like, oh well, they're taking me seriously. They're attacked subtly. Like, no, the only time I've really been attacked was when I was running ads, because you get like nasty people commenting on ads, but that's just everybody. That happens to everybody because the internet's an ugly place. But like, I'll get people that, like, it's like a passive aggressive, weird, critical, contradictory kind of thing, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm just a random dude
Just like you.
making shit up,
Yeah.
and
Doing your
like,
best.
I guess you're taking it seriously. The fact that you're like, so
Yep.
I
That
think,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. So, and I I appreciate people that are really polarizing and controversial, and there's some celebrities out there that are just, some people hate them, other people love them. Because I've always been like a nice guy, and so that appeals to me. But I don't think my true self is particularly necessarily the most controversial by nature,
Yeah.
because I think I'm pretty reasonable.
Not
Or
everybody
pretty,
falls in that camp.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 But
Well, and
it
again,
is
that speaks
interesting.
to the authenticity, right? It's like if we're going to move forward, even though we can admire a quality about somebody, be it, the ability to be controversial and to speak an opinion and to, run headlong into conflict, public conflict, we can admire that and not have to incorporate it in our messaging because it's not real for us. We can say, great, Jack likes to stir the pot. Thank you, Jack, for showing me how to stir the pot. I don't want to stir the
Mm-hmm.
pot. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
feel like it, but I appreciate that Jack does it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an important thing to recognize, that not everything that we appreciate needs to be something that we practice. And that's a lovely way to recognize that there's room for our own excellence and our own deficiencies that actually fit as a part of the whole. That there are other people who will be X, Y, and Z, and I can be A, B, and C, and some people are A, Z, and Q, and there's all different types of things like this. So,
Mm-hmm.
but we've come to the end of our hour here, Justin. If the folks listening, the brothers listening, are curious to get in touch with you, they want to know more about the Facebook group, they want to know more about how they can weave greater authenticity into their own marketing for their businesses, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm most active on Facebook. I should probably check sometime if there's a million other people with the same name as me, and it's hard to find me, but I'm Justin Dale on Facebook. My website is tribebuilder.net. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm everywhere. I'm on YouTube, on Instagram, but those would be great places to start. And I do have the Facebook group, which is a great place to get more involved in the work I'm doing, which is helping people build online coaching businesses. And yeah, so it's been a really interesting conversation. So thanks for having me.
You bet. It's been an absolute pleasure, Justin. And as always, the links to the aforementioned websites and groups will be in the video and episode description, so you can find them there with ease. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
My pleasure.
And that concludes this episode of the Smiling Human podcast. Thank you so much for listening. But before you go, I have 2 invitations for you. The first invitation is to receive a free gift. I've created a free insight journal. This is a 30-day self-reflection and introspection journal that you can download at no cost in the description below. Go have a look and join the journey. The second invitation I have for you is, if it feels within your means and possible for you, then please head over to patreon.com/thesmilinghuman. Becoming a patron will give you access to perks like behind-the-scenes footage and access to live Q&As with me monthly. You also get voting privileges to help pick new guests or to help guide other episode content. Truly, the support of listeners like you, paid or unpaid, goes a long way. So if you can like, share, subscribe, and give a rating on the podcast app, all of that goes a long way. Thank you to each and every one of you who's been on this journey with me. See you again soon.